I'm Ross Ellison, and here I am live from Jacksonville, a city very unlike most of the ones I've ever lived in. A place where only the locals even know reasons to visit this beautiful city, which is really a shame because there's a lot to do here. Um, I'm from Chicago, Illinois, where the pizza is better. Yes, suck it, New York. And the buildings float in the air. That's not hyperbole. The city really does float. If you look at a picture of the Chicago River, that's ground level. The whole city has 2 stories of concrete holding everything above the ground. Also, it may be more than that. I kind of just threw that number out. I might be wrong. It might be 3 floors. I love video games, talking philosophy, and talking, asking hard questions, making fictional characters regret existing, and exploring the world, of course. If I am not working at my computer, I'll probably be outside playing Pokemon Go and hunting a new park for my travel blog. Or at least I would be, but I'm staying safe and keeping home as much as possible. Except when I go out to protest, of course. A lot of people like to ask me if I'm employed, and saying I am employed is such a strong word because it's not really true. I keep hoping for a better job while trying to create my own, but honestly, let's be real, this job market sucks. I hope to one day give speeches about surviving with disabilities in a world hostile to those who have them, but for now I'm gonna let Black Lives Matter have the mic because it's their time, so I can focus on that another time. So I'm single, so if that special someone is watching this and wondering, yes, I'm available, but I doubt you're watching this, because why would you be? So anyway, I'm no stranger to live streams. I use Twitch TV to stream video games several times a week. I had some questions that I was asked beforehand, so I'm going to read from those first. The most important of those is, how am I quarantining? Admittedly, I am making use of poor coping mechanisms to get through all this, but I'm doing my best to get through each day, and it's quite a struggle. I'm sure it's the same for everyone. And then, what do I write? I mostly write dark fantasy, grimdark sci-fi, and all topped with a bit of cosmic horror. Don't come to my stories expecting happiness and rainbows, or you'll be extremely disappointed. I prefer to write about flawed characters forced into horrific situations where they're forced to make harsh choices. There are no third options in my tales, nor are there simple ways out of complex situations. A lot of my stories and tales feature mental illness, surviving abuse, and magic being used in creative and frightening ways. Most of all, I try to deconstruct and reconstruct every trope I can. I've got 2 series, I don't actually know what the right plural of that word is, of short stories and larger works on the way for both. So I've got the End of Utopia character anthology. Needs a new cover. That is my only published in-print book. Anyway, the End of Utopia character anthology is a whirlwind tour of my Search for Eden series, rather, the beginning of it, with 10 of the most important characters in the story, given a day in the limelight, and 5 of them are villains. It's up to you to figure out which 5. And then I've got 3 ebook-only stories: Traveler from Beyond, which I'm going to read from today, Cult of Ouroboros, which I'm not going to read from today, and Tournament in Haze, I'm also not going to read from that. The first 3 novellas in my Cycle of Millennia series. This one's based on a Dungeons & Dragons campaign that I've continued to run for over 4 years. This story started small and escalated into a dark epic filled with surreal horror with a grim look at how fate might be impossible to change. I've also been published in some short stories where I'm not the sole author, such as Demonic Household Appliances Anthology, Demonic Carnival Anthology, more recently, How I Met My Four-Legged Other, Thrill of the Hunt Urban Legends Anthology, and Thrill of the Hunt Buried Alive Anthology. I think the best short story I've ever written is in that Buried Alive Anthology. It's one of my favorite stories that I've ever written. Believe it or not, I do much more than write terror. Sometimes I do happy things, and my newsletter keeps track of all my antics so you don't have to. So I have a blog at timeloststoryteller.com, and without further ado, and let's start reading the story. So this is the beginning of Traveler from Beyond. So this is from Cycle of Millennia, Traveler from Beyond. Prologue, Shipwrecked. Yeah, I use prologues. I'm cool. Grez sifted through the ashes, desperate for a sign that things could be fixed. But ashes did not provide clues, nor could they be used for anything constructive. The only positive he could count at the moment was that the air on this planet was breathable. Thinking with amusement that on this world he would be considered an alien, Grez thought through his choices. The most logical would be to search for signs of life. There was a nearby stream, and the green trees looked like they'd been grown by unnatural means. Perhaps the life forms here were advanced enough that they could offer aid. He had not fled a doomed planet to be stranded on another, after all. To get his mind off his current predicament, he considered what would happen if hostile entities were encountered. Trained heavily in using his fists, it was doubtful he'd be in immediate danger. Thanks to said training in his youth... Wait, what? Oh, this must be an older draft, sorry. Thanks to said training in his youth, he could run quite far, and for an even longer period of time. Before Grez left the spot where his completely destroyed ship had landed, he marked it in such a way that he could easily return, though who knew when that would be. Refusing to be deterred, he refused to look back and chose a random direction to move. Seemed luck was on his side. Not long after he started walking forward, a smell filled his nose that excited him. Heated food meant intelligent life. Pushing his legs as fast as they could go, he raced across the rolling hills. It did not take long to see a village in the distance, surrounded by what appeared to be farms. Intelligent life indeed. Hopefully the natives wouldn't be hostile to strangers. Grez considered wrapping his tail around his waist. It was unlikely that the people here would bear such features. His race was gifted with some unique traits, and this was one of them. Unfortunately, the crash had jostled his memory slightly, and the name of his species eluded him. However, what mattered was that what little remained told him that he was a prince on his home planet. While the man had no intention of telling everyone to bow before him, there was no way he was going to be sleeping like a beggar. With strong eyesight, Grez saw a sign telling him the village's name. By sheer luck, the letters were similar enough to his own language that he could read them. Discounting the extreme unlikelihood of such an event, he wondered what sort of town Krento would be. The town lacked walls as well as much of the technology that he was accustomed to. It was quite clear that he would not be getting help to leave this planet by staying here. However, there was something else that caught his attention as he approached the main village road. 2 guards who stared at him with suspicion. Neither one had a visible tail, and through the corner of his eye, it was quite plain to see that both these armed individuals were looking at his. "Halt, stranger!" one commanded. "We rarely get visitors here. State your business and purpose." Grez doubted telling them he was from space would be a great idea. He lied, while telling as much of the truth as he could in his gruff voice. "I'm lost, and I'm trying to get my bearings." "You're not helping your case," the second guard stated. "Pat him down." Grez suffered the humiliation of being searched, but he had no visible weapons, and that was something in his favor, it seemed. "Will you please tell me where I am?" Grez asked again. "You are in the Empire of Spacia, good sir. Are you so lost that you've forgotten an entire half of the world?" "I suppose so," Grez responded warily. He wanted to get away from these two, and do exploring of his own. "Where can I get a drink?" These two were testing his patience, and every instinct told him to fight these scrubs. "There!" The guards both pointed towards a large building labeled Tavern. His eyes traced the town in better detail as he looked for the quickest path there. There was little chance of anyone building their houses out of stone and also understanding space travel. Grez would need to find out more about this Spacia, as well as what the guards meant by empire. The tavern might hold the answers, or at least a passable drink for his parched throat. Even if all there was to sip on was piss water, it was better than dealing with the obnoxious guards. Those two even followed him with their eyes right up until he entered the tavern. He never could have realized how much his life was about to change. I'll stop there. That's the prologue of that story. Figured I'd start with something tame. Most of my stories actually are tame until I draw you in, and then I pull the rug from under you. That's always been my method of writing. So, I would love any or all of these books that I've showed you to hit bestseller and earn that orange Amazon tag. So if you like my stories, you should check them out, especially since we're still sort of recovering from this quarantine. And if you think you have other friends who'd like them, you should send them as gifts, because gifts are cool, and these are very cheap and special gifts. Especially those who are brave or tired of optimism that conflicts with our harsh reality. Many of my stories are quick reads, and there's more of them on the way. You won't need to wait long to continue the adventure. Anyway, did you like that? I hope you did. Because I put some work into that. Was that brighter and happier than you expected? Or was that exactly what you thought I would read? So here are some questions that I was given before I started running my mouth. So the first one I was asked was, how much of this happened in the Dungeons & Dragons sessions? And as a few people in this chat who were part of those sessions could attest, all of it happened in those sessions. Or at least the town setup happened. In fact, actually, Assuming he's still here, I'm pretty sure the person who helped me create Grez is watching this right now. So, yeah, he can attest that it was definitely how his character would behave in those situations. All right, and so the other question that I was asked when I read this a while back to someone is, "Are you sure this is a dark story?" Well, are you sure it's a dark story? Is anyone sure it's a dark story? Remember, my method for creating dark stories is to draw my readers in, make them care about the world, make them feel safe. Team Grez indeed, Paul. Team Grez indeed. I like to make my readers feel safe. And then, when I know they won't abandon my work, then I bring the darkness out. This world has some really, really frightening elements hiding just beneath the surface. Hell, this town of Krento that Grez just walked into has a terrifying secret in its own right. The players of the Dungeons & Dragons campaign only learned about it like 6 months ago. Sometimes it takes a while for you to find out the full story. So do I have any other stories related to this one? Well, I've got 2 other stories related to this one that are already published. That would be Cult of Ouroboros, which is part 2, and then Tournament in Haze, part 3. Those 3 stories, as well as I'd say at least 3 more I need to write, are going to encompass a tournament arc where I really used it originally in the campaign to world build and really create the setting for my characters. It ends with a real nasty twist. So if you're waiting for that dark stuff, make sure to get to the end of the tournament arc and you'll start to see what story I actually have in store for you. And then the question that is asked outside of universe and in universe by almost everyone: why does the main character have a monkey tail? And you're just gonna have to read the series to find out the answer to that one, because that's all I'm giving you. I don't even think most of the players know why he has a monkey tail, and they've been playing this campaign for 2 years. So I've got a new release coming up, although it's gonna be a bit before I can finish it because I need to edit it still. So if you liked the idea of having a Dungeons & Dragons campaign turned into a book series, then rejoice, because I'm turning a second one into a book series. That one's called Centrum Glacies. And the first novella, which I haven't named yet, because I tend to name my books after I finish writing them, is coming probably in July. I'm still have to finish it up, the first draft, and I'm going to have to clean it up, because I wrote it over a span of like a year. So that'll be coming up soon. So before I continue, do you guys have any questions for me? As far as no one's asking me about the posters right behind me, which is my answer if someone asks me where my inspiration comes from, because they're right behind me. Because you got, let's see, actually I can't point. I guess I could point. Like the top row that you see, that's Future Diary, which has the queen of psycho love herself, Gasai. Oh, which books would give you the least nightmares? Okay, we got multiple questions. Here we go. Now I'm seeing them. So, the first question I got is, am I a panster or a plotter? I'm actually a combination of both. I tend to write the beginning and end like a plotter and plot that all out, and then I do the middle by the seat of my pants, because then I create really crazy stories. My biggest fear when I write is that my middles are going to be bad. I've played lots of video games, read lots of books where the middle was garbage. And that can turn a lot of people off, which is why I write that way, to make sure that even I have no idea how my middles are going to play out. Which, if I don't know, the reader won't know either. And that leads to a better story. As far as second one, which book would give me the least nightmares? Well, Carrie, I'd say the least nightmarish things I've written are probably in, well, the easy answer to your question is to read Ariel's pet anthology, because all I wrote in that story was about how I got my cat. That is by far the least frightening story I've ever written, because it's a happy story about me adopting a cat. But if you want to read one of my fiction stories, and not read the easy one that, isn't really my genre, I would say this one right here has a few stories in it that aren't scary, but I'd have to direct you to the ones that aren't, and make sure you avoid the ones that are. Because End of Utopia Character Anthology has 3 or 4 stories that are fine, that I think anyone could read, but there's at least 2 that are not for the faint of heart. Probably 3. There's actually 4. Yeah, there's definitely 4 that are questionably scary. There's one that's really truly terrifying that I would not recommend you read at all. That one's about Of an extremely psychologically disturbed little girl and her fascination with torturing people. You don't want to read that one. Then I give a little preview about what each one's going to be about if you're worried about what you're getting yourself into. Well, I guess I could try pointing, but they're really blurry. So the poster in the corner, the bottom there that I'm trying to point at, well, actually, the ones on the side that you can't see at all, one of those is a custom, not a custom, but it's a unique artwork piece by an artist named Janae. And I wanted that, the one in the bottom right, because the characters look like two characters from my Search for Eden series, and the dynamic relationship between them, because the one in the back you can't really see from here, but it's a woman kind of putting her hands around the throat of the other woman, and the relationship between the two characters is a mother and a daughter, where she never is truly choking her child, but she's manipulating her every step and controlling her every move. And the in the other picture, the one in the front of the child has her eyes closed because she's for most of the series blind to the fact that her mother is doing that because of just her unshakable bond with her mom. And the thing is, the mother isn't manipulating her for like nefarious purposes. She just has this crazy plan that she's cooked up, and she won't let any pieces of her little plot behave in a way that's contradictory to it. So it's more like that kind of scheme. And then, let's see, you've got right above that, you've got Attack on Titan, which is a truly amazing anime and manga. It's about giant man-eating monsters that you watch devour people whole. And then right next to that is Persona 4, one of my favorite video games, and truly a great exercise on character building because every single character in that game, especially the ones on that poster, are extremely well written, and they deal with some very important what's the word I'm looking for? I guess ethical and moral issues. Especially like there's a few characters on the poster there. One of them has a sexual orientation issue where his family won't let him express at all his sexual identity, and then you deals with a lot of psychology dealing with how he takes care of that and how he lives in a world where no one accepts him for it and even mocks him for his sexual orientation. You've got another character who's a police officer, and she basically has to pretend she's a dude because in Japan, where the game takes place, at that time in history, even modern day, it's almost unthinkable for women to be police officers. And she knows that in Japan, which is a male dominated society, she basically has to do that to win. And that's just two of the 9 character arcs on that poster alone. And there's like 30 different characters not on that poster in the same game. It's an incredible game. Probably one of the most important posters is the one right next to the Persona 4 poster. It's that one right there that I'm pointing at. That is from an anime called Puelai Magi Madoka Magica. That is probably one of the greatest shows I've ever watched. It's a great example of what I even like to write, and it's written by an author I aspire to be like. His name's Gen Urobuchi, and he is probably my favorite author in existence. He likes to take stories like I do that are safe and then twist them and make you realize that you're on a roller coaster ride and you can't get off the ride until the end. And it's just a fantastic way to write, and that's how I aspire. Like Madoka Magica, for example, takes the story of Sailor Moon, which is an anime that many people, I'm sure even people in here, are familiar with, and then takes the safety away from it. And fun things like that. That's why it's one of my favorite shows and why I have a poster for it. There's a lot of stuff up there. I mean, there's a poster up there for this little visual novel called Doki Doki Literature Club, which I can't even talk about that without ruining it. And then the big poster up at the top there, that's from another visual novel called Fate Stay Night, which is partially written by Gen Urobuchi, the guy who wrote Madoka Magica. And that story has branching paths and lots of tragedy. And trying to explain the Fate universe, I could be here for 3 hours and not even finish. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Let me turn it so you can see from this angle. So the poster that has the huge glare that you can't see at all right now, that's David Zanatos from Gargoyles. Let me see if I can move it so you don't see the glare. Nope, the glare's still there. Sorry, can't see the Gargoyles poster. But David Zanatos, in my opinion, is one of the best written villains of all time. And when I measure up any villain I try to write in any of my stories, I compare it to him. David Zanatos in Gargoyles is basically what you'd get if you took a character like Bruce Wayne and Batman and made them the villain. He's such a well-written character. Like, I recommend watching Gargoyles. It's one of the best written shows ever. Like, straight up, I will die on that hill. It's one of the best shows ever written. And it's Disney, and that's the part of Disney I like, because those of you who know me know I really don't like Disney very much. And then, to the left of the Gargoyles poster, the giant eyeball poster, is the darkest, most triggering show I have ever watched in my life. That is Berserk. That show has every single trigger warning I can think of in one story. Things that I can't even say on this stream happen in that show. It is the darkest thing I have ever seen in my life, the darkest visual novel or graphic novel I've ever read, and one of the most fantastic stories I've ever seen. But you have to have a heart of iron to get through it, and I don't even think a heart of iron's enough to get through some parts of Berserk. It's just that frightening of a show and story. Let's see. Oh, and then there's Fullmetal Alchemist at the top, the other big poster. Fullmetal Alchemist is probably my favorite anime and manga. And it's written by a woman, by the way. That one is still even above Berserk. I think that is the best anime I've ever watched. And probably the best cartoon I've ever seen. Even, like, beyond, like, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Especially to me. I'm Jewish, and Fullmetal Alchemist deals with, like, a very similar situation to what happened post-Nazi Germany in World War II. And most of the characters are soldiers who fought in the army and dealing with all of their trauma and trying to come to grips with the horrible things they did just because they followed orders and trying to atone for their sins. And it is a great show. And I'd recommend anyone who hasn't seen it watch it. There's actually way more posters in this room, but I could be here the rest of the day talking about them. That's just one corner. I have posters all around me. Here, I'll turn the thing around for a second so you can see. See, there's way more over there. And there's more over there. I have them all around the whole room. And these are just my posters. You could see way more if I went into the living room and you see my roommate's posters. Oh, where's my sword? That's a good question. Where is that poster? But yeah, there is a sword that's a mascot of probably all my work. The Rudenblade Apathy, which if you go to my website, it's at the top. And I gotta give credit to Valerie Willis, who drew that for me, because that was probably one of the most important pieces of artwork I've received. Anyway, let's wrap things up, though. So, anyway, I hope you were intrigued by all the nonsense and strangeness I presented today. So I think we made it to the end. I'm going to cut myself off because my time slot's almost up, and because I could keep talking through the apocalypse. Thanks for listening today, though, guys. I'll put the links in at the end. Make sure to stay safe, and please wash your hands and wear a mask in public. I write fictional tragedies. Let's prevent real-life ones together. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, I do have one last announcement, though, before I go. I wanted to do something, and I wanted to do it before, while Tim was still alive, but unfortunately Tim Rumsey is no longer with us. But there was an open mic he used to run with writers of Central Florida or thereabouts called Storytelling with Bungee Jumping. It was a place that we created as a safe space for people to tell dark stories that they were afraid to tell anywhere else. And given what's going on in the world, take your pick, there's lots of things to choose from. I'm sure lots of people have stories they want to tell that were born out of all of the negative energy happening right now. Or, before all this negative energy that's in the world. But I want to bring that open mic back. And so I'm going to be putting together an open mic, both to honor Tim and to keep doing that open mic that he created that, honestly, I think was one of the best open mics I've ever attended. So I'll get you some details on that, but I'll keep your names in mind for those of you who want to attend something like that. because I think that's important. So thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to check this out. And thank you so much for Writers Atelier for giving me the chance to talk. And thank you so much to Raquel and Megan for helping me put this together. And Megan, again, for helping me make my website look, reasonable instead of the hot garbage it was before. So thanks so much. Stay safe, everyone. And please wash your hands and wear a mask when you go out in public. Bye now. Bye-bye.